Hello. As said, my name is Elīna Girne, and I'm Chief Legal Officer at the data technology company Squalio in Latvia. Actually, my day-to-day work is absolutely related to how to explain to others what are the red lines, legal or compliance, if we want to run fast, if we want to do a lot of things online, and if we want to achieve something. We digitalize consciously or unconsciously. Actually, today, I would say, what do we know about us, ourselves, as IDs online? And what do others know about us? We do a lot of stuff online. We face a lot of challenges, and this requires certain skills and approaches that help us to meet the new trends, the new happenings, the new events. And this is why I would like to take you today on a small road trip. So let's start with a look back. We used to have phones with buttons, and I myself actually had a long thought of what I need a smartphone. But at a certain time, I realized that data and digitalization actually is something that constantly is happening in my life. So I was just forced to choose this. But if we take a look back, November 2014, The Guardian actually addressed the question, how much do we care about online privacy? At that time, online was actually something massively fast evolving. And the funny thing there is that there were a lot of discussions online about what is privacy, what are data, what should be done there. But still, the constant rule behind the scenes was that all the online apps constantly were breaching their own privacy rules. So what are the highlights of that time? First of all, people don't value their data as much as they say. The funny fact is that e-commerce customers, they know actually that the companies are collecting their data. They know that they're using them, but they don't care whether it's safe or not. And the next highlight is that people want to feel control, even if they are not in control. And that is even labeled with a certain name. It's control paradox, which means that as much as we give the certainty for the person to feel that the person is in charge and in control of their data, they end up with sharing a lot of data they didn't, first of all, think that they would share. And the last highlight that time was that people find it easier to trust businesses than people. And actually here it comes to the basis that we're naturally not inclined to believe or trust other people. But we do trust the word of mouth, and we do trust the reputation. So we do trust those the others say that we can trust too. And at the end, we just share our data because we trust in something that somebody told us. Then comes year 2018. And here it was about the New Yorker's article, which actually was about why do we care so much about privacy. 2018, we know, all of us, is the year when GDPR came into effect. A lot of noise, a lot of mess. Everybody tried to sort out something, to create documents, to make an order in their data and processes. But at the end of the day, the highlights are as follows. They updated a lot of privacy policies. At the same time, the machine learning cut down the time we spent online. Alexa was listening to what we do every day. And then Cambridge Analytica, without even hacking, harvested about 50 million Facebook user data and used them. Did we think about that before? No, we didn't, because nothing like that happened. And we are really at that time strongly announcing that we actually stand for privacy. We want others to observe our privacy, but we don't have any clue how much of invasion in our privacy we would tolerate. So at the end of the day, we actually share and take data a lot, and we try to stick to some rules, but we actually are not so much into understanding what is happening behind the scenes. And what happens actually is also that the companies who are using our data, they don't know what they see and where the data land. So imagine, we don't have any information on this either. Then comes year 2020. And that is funny. I mean, we didn't know at that point in time, when Security Magazine published sort of trends for year 2021, we didn't know that pandemic is coming. And we know all, COVID pandemic has really brought us to the basis line where we are forced to change our practices. Some habits are there for good. Some habits we will never have again. But let's take a look back. What we thought in December 2020, what would be the highlights of our 2021? First of all, data ethics will be more important than transparency in the data processing today and in the future. Here the highlight is that people try to understand where their data land, but what they are most certainly very concerned about is what is done with their sensitive data, and not only today, but also tomorrow. The second highlight was that privacy protection will need to be continuous and unified. I think a lot of you have noticed that there are coming colleagues and asking questions about data you process, what are you doing with them, where you store them, to whom you give them. And this shows what happens in reality when we just cut in pieces the privacy issues, the data issues. Your colleagues, all of them perfectly professional, do their job. They create something that solves privacy and data issues from their perspective. Then they come to CEO, put the accomplished tasks on the table and say, hey, we have this privacy in our company now. But it appears that just because there is no project lead in this particular case, the privacy fails. So, during COVID, we have been forced to really fast adapt to new circumstances, really fast invent something that solves remote processes and necessities. But the privacy fails, and this is what we will need to change, and there are no compromises in that. The next trend which was seen there was that personal circumstances will continue to drive professional changes. And here it comes absolutely to the remote work. I mean, you have a Teams call at the same dining table, your husband is working, and the privacy and the professional life, they absolutely blur. So we cannot ourselves draw this red line. I want to stop here because we are forced to really join these two worlds and find something that works. We still have a job where we get salary, and we still have a family where we're loved. And that brings us to the next trend, which was seen back then, that employee monitoring will be really big trend. And funny thing is that at the moment, the companies have still challenge to understand where is this red line, which they cannot cross, because monitoring employees, believe me or not, that has been the very massive interest since COVID started. But there are legal limits, there are privacy limits, there are certain limits. And that means the companies and people as such would need to really shift the culture from something that was absolutely clearly described in employment agreements and as a rule imposed at home, and now we have to find a joint project how we still manage with data privacy and still do our job. And last but not least, what was seen as a trend then, that data privacy law enforcement will be more harsh. And that is actually something that might come up very soon, although we are in the middle of 2021, that European Data Protection Board has insisted that authorities supervising data privacy and protection should give up their patience and start to impose fines. So, considering COVID pandemic challenges we faced, the remote work, the massive data exchange, we actually might face during this year still very high fines. And just remember, it's up to 20 million euro if you fail to keep privacy. So let's take a look back. Some of you might remember the time when we got 16 years of age. That was the moment we got our passport, and that was ultimate affirmation of our ID. Today, the state-granted ID is no longer the main one, because all the habits, connections, all the actions we make, all the locations, those are which create actually our identity today, and that's e-identity. So we have to be very cautious with that. We have to be very clever using that. But let's take a look what happens if we switch off our e-identity. And I've put together 4 milestones for this roadmap. The first one is identity and privacy. As I said in the beginning, we actually are not inclined to trust others. But then again, just think about your own action. We are not willing to share information with others. We want them to observe our privacy, but we really, really want to sneak in and see what they do. What are their data? What is information about them? So if we disconnect, first of all, the identity is there. Yes, you have a passport. What you're left with, it's most probably the friends within the reach of handshake. It's most probably the book on your shelf. It's the photos you've intentionally collected. It's a view outside the window. Yes, that's not little, but it's not enough anymore for us today. And we have to understand that we have to give something to get something. That was also during the studies back in time, concluded that it's a key to something that makes things moving. The question is whether we really, really stand for the privacy with no backfalls, no exceptions. If we do so, yes, we can close the door, we are private, nobody will disturb us. They might reach us if we are at home, either by phone or knocking on the door, or they might also send us a letter. But the choices we get out of this very privacy, they are very little. And then we come to the next milestone, information and assets. Whether you have a book or you have an entire internet of everything that is collected and shared by others, that makes a difference. Remember, back in time, we really needed to dig into something to get a little piece of benefit for us. For instance, to find a pizza place, you had to find a phone number in the book, call them, ask them if they have pizza on their menu, maybe ashamed, but you ask how much does it cost, and then you ask whether you can come and have it on Tuesday. Today, it's just one click away, and you are served immediately. You click your choice. So the speed of information actually is the one which leads the speed of economy. And if we switch it off, that brings us back in economy, actually maybe, and at least to year 2000, when the online world was really booming up, or even maybe more back in time. And that means that we have been creating the online possibilities very fast, very much enjoying that. Actually, I would compare it to playing a video game where we just have fun. And that ends up with the downside of the information and assets. We are really casting the information and data in the online world without sorting out whether we need it to do, whether it's really reasonable to do that. And it ends up with enormous amount of information, which is available to really, really large scope of people, and we actually don't have any clue what they're doing with that. The next milestone is distance and mobility. I think the commuting and client visits, that's something that we today might consider as luxury to go by car somewhere and spend our time. By the way, back then, when we were unplugged, it might take half a day to get to the client, and that was a build time. Today, luxury is commuting. We do everything remotely, and actually we can get a job which is cross-border job without even moving to this country. And that, I think, is also something out of those things we really are used to and which happen even we don't notice that. That's a benefit, and we should take it as a benefit. So getting unplugged in this, I would say COVID would have caused really downside for economy if we would have been unplugged today. And the last milestone I consider time and efficiency. It has been showed by studies that to read an email, it takes 30 seconds till 5 minutes. So actually, if all of us are efficient, we will end up with really having no privacy, no our private time, and maybe even losing our ID. Because everybody expects everybody to respond immediately, act immediately, solve immediately. And the question is whether we are smart in using all those milestones and really core aspects of digital world or not. Summing up, what is the future? Actually, the future is, and I would say the ultimate goal is digital sustainability. We definitely need to choose which information we collect, which data we are sharing, what actions do we make, and then we can get to database decisions at the end. Sounds very smart, but the challenge today, I would say, is still that we are playing this video game online world. And I think that when the worldwide service, when the online was created, it actually was not intended to create problems. It was intended to solve things. But we so much like it. We so much enjoy it. So we cast the information all around us without sorting it out. And at the end, we have created mess. So it's time to take a look back, see what is the benefit out of this, what actually we can create out of data, privacy, and online things, and take the best out of it. And yeah, the future is there. Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed, and I think every of us should think about privacy as a general topic everywhere, because the lawyers will come after you and write the papers. But the game you play is the essence of everything there. Thank you.